Do you ever miss the simple days? Sometimes.
The Seattle skyline glittered beneath the penthouse balcony. From that height, the city looked calm. Lights reflected across the dark water while traffic moved quietly through the streets far below. Adrian Caldwell leaned against the balcony railing with a glass in his hand. Across from him sat his longtime friend, Darius Vane. Years earlier, they had shared cheap takeout meals while discussing startup ideas in a cramped apartment. Back then, Adrian had nothing except ambition and a plan for the technology company that would eventually become Caldwell Dynamics. Now he was one of the youngest billionaires in the industry. Darius glanced across the skyline and chuckled. Life looks different now. Adrian nodded slightly. It does. For a moment they watched the city in silence. Success had brought money, influence, and endless expectations. Conversations between old friends often turned reflective. Darius broke the silence again. "Let me ask you something," he said. Adrian looked at him. "What?" Darius shrugged casually. "Do you ever think about the past, before all the pressure, before investors and media and everyone judging every move you make?" Adrian took a slow sip from his glass. "Sometimes." Darius leaned forward. "What about old relationships?" Adrian paused. Adrian answered without hesitation. "My ex is better than her."
My ex is better than her.
The sentence left his mouth easily. Too easily. Because Adrian Caldwell did not realize someone had just stepped into the hallway behind the balcony door. And she heard every word. Inside the penthouse, the hallway remained quiet. Celine Ardent had returned home earlier than Adrian expected. Her evening meeting finished ahead of schedule, and she decided to come back without calling first. She walked through the apartment slowly, setting her bag on the hallway table. The soft glow of the living room lights revealed that Adrian was not alone. She heard voices. Adrian's voice. And Darius. Their conversation drifted through the slightly open balcony door. At first, Celine paid little attention. Adrian often spoke with Darius about business pressure and company decisions. She did not want to interrupt. But then the conversation shifted. Darius asked something about Adrian's past. Celine slowed her steps. She did not intend to listen. Yet the balcony door stood partly open, and the next sentence reached her clearly. "My ex is better than her." Celine stopped moving. For a moment, her mind struggled to process the words. Her chest tightened. The sentence echoed again inside her thoughts. "My ex is better than her." The man who said those words was the same man she stood beside for years. The same man she supported while he built Caldwell Dynamics into a global company. The same man she married. Celine felt a sharp wave of disbelief rise inside her. Had she heard him correctly? She stood in the hallway, silent and still. The quiet apartment suddenly felt heavy. Outside on the balcony, Adrian and Darius continued their conversation. They had no idea Celine stood only a few steps away. And they had no idea she heard everything. For several seconds, Celine remained in the hallway. Her mind searched for another explanation, a different meaning, anything that would change what she just heard. None came. The sentence remained clear. "My ex is better than her." A quiet heat began rising in her chest. Shock faded. Hurt replaced it. Hurt quickly turned into anger. Celine walked toward the balcony. Each step felt heavier than the last. The door stood slightly open. Cool air drifted through the gap, while the low sound of Adrian and Darius talking continued outside. Celine pushed the door open. The sudden movement broke the calm night. The sound made both men turn immediately. Adrian's expression froze. Darius straightened in his chair. Celine stood at the doorway. Her eyes locked onto Adrian. Neither man needed an explanation. The tension in the air made the truth obvious. She heard it. For a brief second, no one spoke. The glowing skyline behind Adrian framed the silence between them. The breeze moved gently across the balcony, yet the moment felt heavy and still. Celine stepped forward slowly. Her voice carried controlled anger. "Better than me?" Adrian felt the words hit him like a sudden shock. The glass in his hand lowered slightly. He looked at her, realizing in that instant what had happened. She heard everything. And the sentence he spoke seconds earlier could no longer be taken back. Adrian stared at Celine, his mind racing for the right words. None came. Celine stepped farther onto the balcony. The cool night air brushed against her face, yet the heat in her chest refused to fade. "So this is how you speak about your wife?" she asked. Her voice trembled slightly, though the strength behind it remained clear. Adrian set his glass on the small table beside him. "Celine, listen," he began. But she raised her hand, stopping him. "No," she said firmly. "You listen." Darius shifted uncomfortably in his chair. The tension between them felt personal, raw, and impossible to ignore. Celine looked directly at Adrian. "I stood beside you while you built everything you have," she said. "Years of long nights, pressure, and sacrifices. I supported you through all of it." Adrian lowered his gaze. "I know." Her eyes narrowed. "Do you?" She took another step closer. "Because a man who understands that does not sit on a balcony telling his friend his ex was better than his wife." The words hung in the air between them. Adrian rubbed the back of his neck, clearly struggling. "It was a careless comment," he said. "You misunderstood what I meant." Celine's expression hardened. "Then explain it." Neither man answered immediately. The quiet night around them suddenly felt far heavier than before. And for the first time in years, Adrian Caldwell realized his success could not protect him from the damage his own words caused. Celine waited. Her eyes remained fixed on Adrian. "Explain it," she repeated. Adrian opened his mouth, yet the answer refused to come. Every excuse forming in his mind sounded weak even before he spoke it. Darius slowly stood from his chair. He understood something important. This conversation no longer belonged to him. "I think you both need a moment," he said quietly. Neither Adrian nor Celine responded. Darius walked past them and disappeared inside the apartment, leaving the balcony door open behind him. Now only two people remained, husband and wife. Years of shared memories stood between them. Years of loyalty, support, and trust. Celine finally spoke again, her voice softer but far heavier. "Do you know how many years I stood beside you while you built your company?" Adrian nodded slowly. "I know." She studied his face carefully. "Then why would you say something like that?" Adrian looked down at the glowing city below. For the first time in a long while, he had no confident answer. Because the truth was uncomfortable. Success had changed more than his bank account. It had slowly changed the way he looked at everything. Even the woman who once believed in him more than anyone else. Celine took a slow breath before asking one final question. If she was better, why did you marry me? Adrian had no answer, and the silence between them became the moment that changed everything. But this story did not begin on a balcony in Seattle. It began many years earlier, in a quiet harbor town along the Oregon coast. Many years before the balcony argument in Seattle, Celine Ardent's life moved at a slower rhythm. She grew up in a small harbor town along the Oregon coast. It was the type of place where the ocean shaped daily life. Fishing boats left the docks before sunrise. Wooden piers stretched into gray morning water, while gulls circled above waiting for the first catch of the day. The town was not wealthy. Most families worked simple jobs connected to the sea. Fishermen repaired their nets outside small houses. Mechanics kept aging boats running. Cafe owners opened their doors early so the workers could grab coffee before heading out. People knew one another well. Neighbors greeted each other by name. Shop owners remembered birthdays and family stories. When storms arrived during winter, the entire town prepared together. Celine spent much of her childhood walking the narrow streets near the harbor. The smell of salt water mixed with fresh bread from the nearby bakery. The sound of boat engines and morning conversations filled the air before the sun fully rose. Life there was steady. No one chased fame. Few people cared about wealth beyond what they needed to support their families. Respect mattered more than status. As a young girl, Celine watched how adults treated each other. The fishermen helped repair damaged boats for neighbors. Cafe owners sometimes gave free meals to workers who returned from long nights at sea. Those small acts taught quiet lessons. A person's worth did not come from money. It came from how they treated others. Celine did not realize it then. But those early years by the harbor were shaping the values that would guide her entire life. Values that would later stand in sharp contrast to the world of wealth and influence she would eventually enter. Near the center of that small harbor town stood a modest bakery with large front windows and a wooden sign that read Ardent Family Bakery. Celine's parents opened the shop years before she was born. It was not a large business, but it held an important place in the community. Every morning the ovens warmed the narrow building before sunrise. The smell of fresh bread traveled through the street long before the first customers arrived. Celine often woke early to help. While other children slept, she walked with her mother to the bakery. The quiet streets slowly filled with the sound of boat engines starting in the harbor. Inside the shop, flour dusted the wooden counters, while trays of pastries cooled near the windows. Her father handled most of the baking. He worked patiently, measuring ingredients with care. Her mother greeted customers and managed the front counter. Celine helped arrange pastries in the display cases. Croissants, sweet rolls, and loaves of bread lined the shelves neatly. Fishermen usually became the first visitors each morning. They stepped inside wearing thick jackets and weathered boots, grateful for warm coffee before heading to the docks. Many stayed for conversation. They talked about the ocean, weather forecasts, and family news. Some had known Celine's parents for decades. Celine listened quietly while handing out paper bags filled with bread. Those mornings were simple but meaningful. Her parents treated every customer with kindness. It did not matter whether someone bought a full tray of pastries or a single roll. Everyone received the same warm greeting. Watching that daily routine taught Celine something important. A business could succeed while still respecting people. And the way someone treated others during ordinary moments revealed more about their character than any display of wealth ever could. Celine's parents rarely gave long speeches about life. Instead, they shared wisdom through short conversations during quiet moments. One evening after closing the bakery, Celine helped her mother wipe flour from the counters. Outside, the harbor lights reflected across the dark water. Her mother noticed Celine watching a couple arguing loudly across the street. "Do you see them?" her mother asked. Celine nodded. "They fight often," her mother continued calmly. "But the problem is not the argument." Celine looked confused. "Then, what is it?" Her mother placed a tray into the sink and answered gently. "Respect. When respect fades, love struggles to survive." Those words stayed with Celine. Her father shared similar beliefs. Sometimes fishermen visited the bakery after difficult days at sea. Long hours, dangerous waters, and financial worries placed heavy pressure on their families. Celine once asked her father why he always listened patiently to their complaints. Her father smiled. "Because people remember who stood beside them when life felt heavy." He then added another lesson she would never forget. Success means little if you forget the people who helped you reach it. Those simple statements.
My parents always said respect matters more than money.
Those simple statements shaped Celine's thinking. While many young people dreamed about wealth or recognition, Celine focused on something different: character. She learned that loyalty required effort, respect required awareness, and strong relationships depended on daily choices rather than grand gestures. Those lessons would guide her later in life when she encountered ambition, competition, and influence in the business world. They also explained why she valued honesty above attention, and why betrayal would eventually hurt her far more deeply than most people expected. Morning hours in the harbor town always began before sunrise. Celine became familiar with that rhythm at a young age. Several fishermen stopped by the bakery before heading out to sea. They often arrived while the sky remained dark and quiet. Some mornings the wind blew sharply across the docks. Other mornings the ocean air felt calm and cool. No matter the weather, the fishermen appeared at the bakery door around the same time. Celine greeted them with warm coffee and fresh bread. Many of them treated her like a younger family member. They asked about school, teased her about growing taller each year, and shared stories from their work on the water. She enjoyed listening. Their stories carried lessons about patience and responsibility. Fishing demanded discipline. One mistake at sea could damage equipment or threaten lives. Celine noticed something else as well. Despite the risks of their job, the fishermen trusted each other deeply. Crews worked as teams where every person mattered. If someone struggled, the others stepped forward to help. Those small interactions showed Celine the value of cooperation. Success rarely belonged to one person alone. It required many people working together, often without recognition. Before leaving for the docks, the fishermen usually thanked Celine and her parents. Some days they returned in the evening with small gifts. fresh fish, homemade soup, simple gestures of gratitude. The exchange was never about profit. It was about community. Those mornings taught Celine an important truth. Respect grows when people support one another during ordinary moments, and loyalty often appears quietly, through consistent actions rather than dramatic promises. Life in the harbor town moved steadily through the years. Celine attended the local school, where teachers knew their students well, and neighbors attended community events together. Town gatherings often took place near the docks. Small festivals celebrated the fishing season, while local musicians performed on temporary stages. Celine helped her parents serve baked goods during those events. She watched families laugh, children run along the pier, and workers relax after long weeks at sea. The town valued connection. When someone faced hardship, others stepped forward quickly. If a fishing boat suffered damage during a storm, neighbors helped repair it. If a family struggled financially, local businesses quietly provided assistance. Celine absorbed those values without realizing how unusual they might seem elsewhere. To her, kindness felt normal, trust felt natural, and loyalty felt expected. As she grew older, teachers noticed her discipline. She studied carefully and showed strong interest in business and leadership. Rather than dreaming about fame, she wanted to understand how organizations functioned and how leaders influenced the people around them. Her parents supported her curiosity. They encouraged her to pursue education beyond the harbor town so she could expand her knowledge and opportunities. Eventually, Celine applied to a university in Seattle to study business management. The decision meant leaving the only home she had ever known. On her final evening before moving away, she walked along the docks where fishermen prepared their boats for another early departure. The harbor lights reflected across the water while the quiet town settled for the night. Celine carried something with her as she left. Not money, not influence. She carried the values her parents and community had taught her. Values that would guide every decision she made in the years ahead. And those values would soon lead her toward a man named Adrian Caldwell in Seattle. Leaving the quiet, Oregon harbor town felt like stepping into a different world. Seattle moved faster. Streets filled with busy commuters, glass office towers, and constant motion. The harbor Celine knew had been calm and familiar. Seattle felt energetic and competitive. At the university, Celine focused on business management. She spent long hours studying how companies grow, how leaders guide teams, and how decisions inside boardrooms influence thousands of lives. Unlike many students who chased social attention, Celine preferred lectures, workshops, and industry events where experienced professionals shared real knowledge. During her second year, the business faculty organized a leadership forum that brought several young entrepreneurs to campus. These events attracted large crowds because students wanted advice from people building companies in the real world. The conference hall filled quickly that afternoon. Rows of seats stretched toward a bright stage where speakers prepared to discuss their experiences building startups, securing funding, and expanding businesses in competitive markets. Celine sat near the middle of the audience with a notebook resting on her lap. She listened carefully as several speakers described their journeys. Some focused on investment strategies. Others discussed marketing tactics or rapid expansion. The information interested her, yet something felt incomplete. Most presentations emphasized profit and growth. Few mentioned responsibility toward employees, partners, or communities affected by those decisions. Then the final speaker stepped onto the stage. His name appeared on the large screen behind him. Adrian Caldwell. Students in the audience immediately recognized the name. Even at a young age, Adrian had already gained attention for building Caldwell Dynamics, a fast-growing technology infrastructure company attracting serious investment. The room grew quiet. Celine looked up, curious about what kind of leader stood behind that reputation. Adrian Caldwell stood confidently at the center of the stage. He looked younger than many people expected. His calm posture and focused expression gave him the presence of someone used to responsibility. He began speaking without dramatic gestures. Instead of telling exaggerated success stories, he described the early days of Caldwell Dynamics with honest clarity. He explained how the company began as a simple idea during his early 20s. At the time, he had little money, few connections, and a long list of obstacles standing in the way. Banks rejected his first loan requests. Investors questioned whether his technology model would work. Even some mentors advised him to pursue a safer career path. Adrian refused. He believed the demand for digital infrastructure would grow rapidly across North America. Businesses needed stronger systems to manage data, communication, and emerging technology networks. While many people hesitated, Adrian chose action. He described working late nights building early prototypes, negotiating small contracts, and convincing partners to take a chance on a company few people had heard of. The audience listened closely. Students admired the determination behind his story. His journey represented the kind of ambition many young entrepreneurs hope to achieve. But Adrian also spoke about something deeper. He discussed discipline. He explained that success rarely comes from sudden luck. Instead, it grows through consistent effort, careful decision-making, and the courage to continue working when results take longer than expected. Celine listened carefully. She admired ambition, but what interested her most was not the business strategy Adrian described. It was the mindset behind his leadership. She wanted to know how someone carrying that level of pressure balanced success with responsibility. As Adrian continued speaking, the energy in the room slowly shifted. Students leaned forward in their seats. Some began taking notes. Others exchanged impressed glances with friends sitting beside them. Adrian did not speak like a distant executive. His tone carried the determination of someone still building his path, rather than celebrating a finished victory. He described challenges openly. During the first year of Caldwell Dynamics, he personally handled negotiations, technical planning, and financial discussions. Many days stretched into 16-hour work sessions while he struggled to keep the company moving forward. Failure remained a constant possibility. Adrian explained that leadership required accepting responsibility when things went wrong. Employees depended on the decisions he made. Partners invested money based on his judgment. That responsibility shaped every choice. Despite the pressure, Adrian believed strongly in pursuing ideas that could improve industries and create opportunities for others. Celine noticed something interesting. Many people in the audience focused on Adrian's growing reputation and financial success. They whispered about investment rounds and business magazine features, but Adrian rarely mentioned those achievements himself. Instead, he described the process of building something meaningful. The contrast impressed her. Ambition without purpose often leads to empty victories. True leadership required awareness of the people affected by those decisions. As Adrian finished his presentation, the room filled with applause. Students lined up near the stage hoping to shake his hand or ask quick questions about business opportunities. Celine remained seated for a moment, thinking carefully. One question formed clearly in her mind. Not about money, not about fame, a question about responsibility. Eventually, the crowd near the stage began thinning. Many students left the hall, satisfied with the advice they gathered. Others stayed behind to take photos with Adrian or exchange business cards. Celine approached more slowly. She waited until the group around him grew smaller before stepping forward. Adrian noticed her standing nearby. "Do you have a question?" he asked politely. Celine nodded. Yes. Adrian expected another inquiry about startup funding or career strategies. Most people asked similar questions after presentations like this. But Celine surprised him. How do you lead a company without losing sight of the people who helped build it? Adrian paused. The question caught him off guard. For a brief moment, he studied her expression, wondering whether she understood how rarely people ask something like that. Most conversations around business success focused on growth numbers and investor confidence. Few people asked about the human side of leadership. Adrian folded his arms thoughtfully. That's a harder question than most people expect, he admitted. Celine waited patiently. Adrian then explained that leadership demanded constant awareness. Ambition often pushes people to chase the next achievement without noticing who supported them along the way. A responsible leader, he said, must remember the team behind every success. Their conversation continued. 5 minutes passed. Then 10. Neither of them seemed eager to end it. Students and staff gradually left the hall, while Adrian and Celine remained near the stage discussing ethics, responsibility, and the long-term impact of leadership decisions. Nearly an hour passed before either of them realized the room had become quiet. That conversation marked the beginning of something unexpected. For the first time in years, Adrian met someone who looked beyond his reputation. She saw the person behind the success. After their long conversation at the university forum, Adrian and Celine exchanged contact information with no clear expectations. Neither of them rushed into anything. A few days later, Adrian sent a short message thanking her for the thoughtful question she asked during the event. He admitted that her perspective stayed on his mind longer than most conversations he had after public appearances. Celine replied politely, and the exchange continued. What began as occasional messages gradually turned into regular conversations. Because Adrian's schedule remained unpredictable, many of those conversations happened late at night. When most of the city settled into silence, Adrian finally found time to slow down. He often called Celine after long days filled with meetings, negotiations, and technical planning for Caldwell Dynamics. Some nights he sounded energized, describing new contracts and partnerships. Other nights, he sounded exhausted. Celine listened carefully during those calls. She did not interrupt with unnecessary opinions. Instead, she asked thoughtful questions that helped Adrian reflect on his own decisions. Sometimes their discussions focused on business challenges. Other times they spoke about simpler things. Celine shared stories about growing up in the harbor town. Adrian described his early struggles while building his company from scratch. Those late-night conversations slowly became a quiet routine. Adrian discovered something unusual during those calls. Most people spoke to him with excitement about his rising success. Some wanted advice. Others hoped to gain connections. Celine spoke to him like a normal person. She showed curiosity about his ideas, not his reputation. That difference made those calls feel comfortable in a way Adrian had not experienced for a long time. Without realizing it, both of them began looking forward to those quiet conversations at the end of each day. While their conversations continued, Adrian's responsibilities grew quickly. Caldwell Dynamics expanded faster than many analysts predicted. Companies across North America needed stronger digital infrastructure to support rapidly growing technology networks. Adrian spent much of his time traveling between cities to secure contracts and meet potential investors. Some weeks he visited 3 or 4 different locations. Conference rooms, construction sites, and technology facilities became his temporary workplaces. Airports turned into familiar territory. During those trips, Adrian often called Celine while sitting in quiet hotel rooms after exhausting days of meetings. The pressure surrounding his company increased constantly. Every agreement involved complex negotiations. Every expansion required careful planning and financial risk. Adrian rarely admitted how heavy that responsibility felt, but Celine noticed. When he spoke late at night, his voice sometimes carried fatigue he tried to hide from the rest of the world. Instead of offering dramatic encouragement, Celine remained calm. She reminded him that progress takes patience. She encouraged him to focus on thoughtful decisions rather than rushing toward quick victories. Her perspective helped Adrian slow his thinking during stressful moments. On several occasions he admitted that those conversations helped him regain clarity before important negotiations. Despite the distance between them, their connection grew stronger. Adrian realized that during his busiest weeks, the one conversation he valued most happened with Celine. No expectations, no competition, just honest discussion between two people, learning to trust each other's perspective. By the time Adrian returned to Seattle after long trips, he often looked forward to seeing her in person more than anything else waiting for him in the city. As their connection deepened, Adrian began sharing more details about the internal challenges facing his company. Growth brought opportunity, but it also created difficult decisions. Hiring new leadership teams, negotiating partnerships, and managing investor expectations required constant attention. Every choice carried consequences that could affect employees and clients across multiple projects. Adrian trusted few people enough to discuss those pressures openly. Yet with Celine he spoke honestly. One evening he called after a particularly tense meeting with potential investors. They wanted faster expansion than Adrian believed the company could handle responsibly. He described the situation during their conversation. "They think slowing down means losing momentum," Adrian said. "What do you think?" Celine asked. "I think rushing could damage the company long term." Celine remained quiet for a moment. "Then your answer seems clear," she replied calmly. Adrian laughed softly. "If it were that simple, everyone would agree." Celine responded thoughtfully. "Leadership is not about pleasing everyone. It is about making decisions that protect the people depending on you." Adrian paused. Her words reflected the same principles he believed in when he first started Caldwell Dynamics. Pressure from investors sometimes made those principles harder to follow. Celine never told Adrian what to do. Instead, she helped him think through situations with patience and clarity. Over time, Adrian noticed something important. Her advice often guided him toward decisions that strengthened the company rather than weakening it. She did not seek recognition for those conversations. She simply cared about doing what was right. That steady perspective slowly became one of the most valuable influences in Adrian's life. Whenever Adrian returned to Seattle after traveling, he made time to see Celine. Their meetings rarely involved expensive restaurants or crowded events. Instead, they preferred quiet dinners in small cafes along the waterfront, where the city noise softened beneath the sound of moving water. Those evenings gave Adrian a chance to relax. Without the pressure of investors or corporate meetings, he could speak freely about his goals and worries. Celine enjoyed those moments as well. They talked about everything from business ideas to personal dreams. Sometimes they walked along the Seattle waterfront after dinner. Boats moved slowly through the harbor, while city lights reflected across the water. During those walks, Adrian shared hopes he rarely expressed in public. He wanted Caldwell Dynamics to build systems that would support communities and industries for decades. He wanted his company to create opportunities for young engineers and entrepreneurs who lacked resources. Celine listened with genuine interest. She also shared her own ambitions. Her dream involved helping smaller businesses organize their operations so they could grow without losing stability. She believed strong systems allowed people to focus on creativity rather than constant crisis management. Their conversations revealed how well their thinking aligned. Ambition guided Adrian. Balance guided Celine. Together, those qualities created something meaningful. Adrian eventually realized that whenever he felt overwhelmed by pressure, spending time with Celine restored his focus. Her presence grounded him. Without fully recognizing it yet, Celine had become the emotional center of his life. And while their relationship strengthened quietly, Caldwell Dynamics stood on the edge of dramatic expansion that would soon change everything around them. As the years passed, Caldwell Dynamics entered a new phase of growth that even Adrian had once considered ambitious. What began as a small technology startup gradually transformed into one of the most promising infrastructure companies in North America. Businesses across multiple industries needed stronger digital systems to manage data, communications, and rapidly growing online services. Adrian's company offered solutions many organizations struggled to build on their own. Contracts increased steadily. At first, the company expanded into nearby states. Soon afterward, new agreements appeared in major cities across the United States and Canada. Engineering teams worked constantly to develop advanced systems that supported large networks and emerging technologies. The pace accelerated quickly. New offices opened in several metropolitan areas. Skilled engineers, analysts, and project managers joined the company each month. Caldwell Dynamics shifted from a small entrepreneurial team into a major corporate organization managing complex projects across an entire continent. Adrian's schedule changed dramatically. Instead of focusing on product development alone, he now spent long hours coordinating leadership teams, meeting investors, and reviewing large-scale infrastructure proposals. The business world began paying close attention. Technology magazines published articles about Caldwell Dynamics and its rapid growth. Financial analysts predicted the company would become one of the most influential infrastructure providers in the coming decade. For Adrian, the success felt both rewarding and demanding. He worked harder than ever to guide the company through expansion, while maintaining the principles that shaped its early days. Through all of it, Celine remained close beside him. She celebrated the company's achievements, yet also reminded Adrian to slow down whenever the pressure became overwhelming. At that stage, their relationship still felt balanced, but the environment surrounding Adrian was beginning to change in ways neither of them fully understood. As Caldwell Dynamics continued expanding, major investors began competing for opportunities to support the company's future projects. Large investment firms arranged meetings with Adrian to discuss funding partnerships. Financial networks analyzed the company's growth potential during televised market discussions. Suddenly, Adrian's name appeared frequently in business headlines. Magazine profiles described him as one of the youngest leaders building critical infrastructure for modern technology networks. Interviews invited him to share advice about entrepreneurship and leadership. Attention arrived from every direction. With increased investment, Caldwell Dynamics secured several large infrastructure contracts valued in the billions. Those projects pushed the company's value higher than most analysts expected. Within a few years, Adrian's personal financial stake in the company reached extraordinary levels. The business world began referring to him as a billionaire. The label carried influence, but it also introduced a new environment. Invitations arrived for private investor gatherings and corporate conferences, where industry leaders discussed global markets, technological development, and large financial opportunities. Adrian found himself surrounded by people who constantly compared achievements. One executive measured success through revenue numbers. Another measured influence through the size of corporate acquisitions. Conversations often focused on competition between companies and leaders trying to outperform each other. Celine noticed the change immediately. Adrian still treated her with respect, yet the world around him operated at a faster, more aggressive pace. Success brought admiration, but it also introduced expectations. Every decision Adrian made attracted attention. Every accomplishment raised the standard for the next one. Gradually, the environment surrounding him encouraged a subtle habit: comparison. And that habit would eventually influence more than just his business decisions. With Caldwell Dynamics managing projects across multiple regions, Adrian's travel schedule intensified. Commercial flights no longer fit the tight timelines required for negotiations and corporate meetings. Investors arranged private aircraft so Adrian could move quickly between cities where major contracts awaited discussion. For someone who once worked late nights in a small office planning his first prototype, the change felt dramatic. Business events also evolved. Adrian now attended exclusive conferences held in luxury hotels and private resorts. These gatherings brought together powerful executives, investors, and political figures, discussing large-scale economic strategies. The atmosphere inside those events differed greatly from the quiet cafes where Adrian once met Celine for dinner. Competition filled the room. Leaders compared growth rates, acquisition plans, and financial influence. Conversations often turned into subtle contests over who built the most impressive company. Adrian adapted to the environment gradually. He learned to speak confidently among powerful figures. He negotiated deals worth billions of dollars while maintaining the calm focus that originally built Caldwell Dynamics. Yet Celine noticed small changes. Adrian became busier. His patience shortened during stressful weeks. Sometimes their conversations shifted toward comparing companies, strategies, and market influence. Those habits rarely appeared during their early relationship. Celine did not confront him about it. Instead, she watched quietly, hoping the pressure surrounding his success would pass. Viewers listening to this story might recognize this moment. Have you ever seen someone you care about change after achieving success? If you have experienced something similar, share your thoughts in the comments and support the channel with a like. Because in Adrian and Celine's life, peaceful evenings together were becoming less frequent, and that shift would soon lead to the moment on the balcony that changed everything. Several months passed after Caldwell Dynamics reached another major milestone. The company secured a large infrastructure contract that placed Adrian at the center of attention within the technology sector. The victory should have felt satisfying. Instead, Adrian felt tired. The pressure of constant decisions, travel, and investor expectations rarely slowed. Each achievement created new responsibilities that demanded even greater focus. One evening, after an especially demanding week of negotiations, Adrian decided to take a rare break from work. He contacted someone who knew him long before success entered his life: Darius Vane. Darius had been Adrian's friend during the earliest days of Caldwell Dynamics. When Adrian struggled to secure his first contracts, Darius often stayed late discussing ideas and encouraging him to keep moving forward. Their friendship survived the years of rapid change. Unlike many people in Adrian's new professional circles, Darius never treated him differently because of wealth or influence. That night, Adrian invited him to the penthouse overlooking downtown Seattle. The apartment occupied the upper floor of a modern glass tower. Wide windows revealed the city skyline and the distant glow of the harbor. When Darius arrived, Adrian greeted him with a relaxed smile. "Feels strange seeing you in a place like this," Darius joked while stepping inside. Adrian laughed. "I was thinking the same thing." They walked toward the balcony, where a small table held 2 glasses and a quiet view of the city lights. For a short time they spoke about ordinary things, old memories, early business struggles, mutual friends they had not seen in years. But as the evening continued, the conversation shifted toward a heavier topic: success, and the pressure that followed it. Adrian leaned against the balcony railing while Darius sat comfortably nearby. From that height, the city appeared calm. Lights reflected across the water while traffic moved slowly through the streets below. Darius studied the skyline before speaking. "You remember when you were working from that tiny office near the harbor?" he asked. Adrian smiled. "I remember sleeping there more than working." Darius laughed. "You looked exhausted all the time." "I still do," Adrian replied. The humor faded into a thoughtful pause. Darius turned toward him. "Be honest. Is the pressure worse now than it was back then?" Adrian considered the question. "In some ways, yes." He explained how every decision now affected hundreds of employees and millions of dollars in investment. A mistake could impact not only the company, but also partners who trusted him with their resources. Darius listened carefully. "You built something incredible," he said. "But I can see the weight on you." Adrian took a slow breath. "Success brings attention. Investors, media, everyone watching what you do next, and everyone comparing you with someone else," Darius added. Adrian nodded slightly. That comparison culture existed everywhere in the business world. Companies measured themselves against competitors. Executives compared growth numbers and financial achievements. Even conversations among industry leaders often sounded like contests. Darius leaned back in his chair. "Do you ever miss when things were simpler?" he asked. Adrian looked across the city lights. Sometimes, the moment felt honest. 2 old friends reflecting on how life changed after ambition turned into reality. Then Darius asked a question that shifted the conversation towards something far more personal. Darius rested his arms on the chair and glanced toward Adrian with a curious expression. "You know what I've been wondering lately?" he said. Adrian raised an eyebrow. "What?" "How success affects relationships." Adrian gave a quiet laugh. "That's a complicated subject." Darius nodded. "Exactly." He explained that many people he knew struggled to maintain stable relationships after achieving financial success. Expectations increased. Schedules became unpredictable. The environment surrounding wealth introduced new temptations and pressures. "People change," Darius said, "or sometimes they simply reveal parts of themselves that never appeared before." Adrian listened quietly. Darius continued. "I've seen couples drift apart because their lives started moving in different directions." He paused briefly before asking another question. "What about you?" Adrian looked at him. "What about me?" "You've been married for several years now," Darius said. "Do you ever think about the past, the relationships you had before everything took off?" Adrian leaned against the railing, considering the thought. His mind briefly returned to earlier chapters of his life. Those years carried fewer expectations. Decisions felt simpler when the company was small, and the world had not yet placed him under constant observation. Darius spoke again, half joking. "Come on, be honest. Was there anyone back then who might have handled this crazy life better than your wife does now?" Adrian stared out across the skyline. He did not realize how casually the next sentence would leave his mouth. And he did not realize someone else stood only a few steps away from the balcony door. Adrian responded without thinking. "My ex is better than her." The words sounded simple in the quiet night air. Darius blinked, slightly surprised by the blunt answer. Before he could respond, a sharp sound interrupted the moment. The balcony door behind Adrian swung open. Both men turned. Celine stood in the doorway, her eyes fixed on Adrian. For a brief second no one moved. The city lights behind Adrian cast a pale glow across the balcony, yet the silence felt heavier than the skyline itself. Celine stepped forward slowly. "Better than me?" she asked. Her voice carried a mixture of disbelief and hurt. Adrian's expression froze. "Celine, I didn't realize you were home," he said carefully. "That's obvious," she replied. Darius shifted uncomfortably in his chair. He instantly understood the situation. Celine had heard everything. She moved closer, her gaze locked on Adrian. "So, this is what you say when you think I'm not around?" she asked. Adrian lifted his hands slightly. It was just a careless comment. Celine shook her head. Careless words often reveal honest thoughts. Darius stood quietly. I think you two need privacy, he said, walking toward the apartment door. Now Adrian and Celine faced each other alone. Years of shared history hung between them. Celine's voice softened, but remained firm. Do you know how many years I stood beside you while you built your company? Adrian lowered his eyes. I know. She took another step forward. If she was better, why did you marry me? Adrian opened his mouth, but no answer came. And the silence between them said more than any explanation could. The silence on the balcony stretched longer than either of them expected. Adrian stood near the railing, searching for words that could soften the damage already done. Celine remained a few steps away, her arms resting at her sides while she watched him with quiet intensity. The city lights behind them continued glowing across the water, yet the calm view offered no comfort. Adrian finally spoke. Celine, you misunderstood what I meant. She looked at him steadily. Did the first? Her voice carried no raised volume. The calm tone made the situation feel even heavier. Adrian ran a hand through his hair. It was just conversation. Darius asked about the past. I answered without thinking. Celine tilted her head slightly. You answered honestly. Adrian hesitated. That's not what I meant. Celine let out a slow breath and turned away from the balcony railing. She walked toward the living room, leaving Adrian standing behind her. He followed a few seconds later. Inside the penthouse, the space felt different from earlier that evening. The comfortable apartment now carried tension that filled every quiet corner. Celine stood near the large window looking down at the city streets below. You know what hurts the most? She said softly. Adrian waited. It's not just the sentence you said. She turned to face him again. It's the realization that you've been comparing me to someone else without telling me. Adrian tried to respond quickly. I never compared you. Celine's expression hardened. You did tonight. The truth hung in the air between them. And Adrian began realizing that his careless comment opened a wound far deeper than he first understood. Celine walked slowly across the living room while Adrian remained near the entrance to the balcony. Her thoughts moved rapidly, revisiting moments from the past few years. Long nights supporting Adrian through difficult negotiations, encouraging him during early setbacks, standing beside him when few people believed Caldwell Dynamics would succeed. All those memories now felt different. She stopped near the center of the room and faced him again. Do you know how strange this feels? She asked quietly. Adrian took a cautious step closer. Celine, please listen. She continued speaking before he could finish. For years I believed we built this life together. I believed we respected each other. Her eyes met his. But tonight I hear you telling someone that another woman was better for you. Adrian shook his head. That's not what I meant. Then explain what you meant, Celine replied firmly. Adrian struggled. He wanted to correct the situation. Yet every explanation forming in his mind sounded incomplete. Celine spoke again. Did you ever regret marrying me? The question landed heavily. Adrian answered quickly. No. Then why compare me to someone from your past? Adrian paused. Because the truth felt uncomfortable. The environment surrounding his success often encouraged comparison. Business leaders constantly measured themselves against competitors' achievements and influence. Somehow that habit had extended into his personal life. Celine watched his silence carefully. For the first time since they met, uncertainty appeared in her eyes. Not anger, something deeper, doubt. And Adrian understood that the trust between them had shifted in a way he could not easily repair. The conversation slowed until neither of them spoke for several moments. Celine walked toward the hallway where her bag rested on the small table near the door. Adrian noticed the movement immediately. Where are you going? He asked. She picked up her bag and turned back toward him. I need time to think. Adrian moved closer. You don't have to leave. Celine shook her head gently. If I stay tonight, we'll continue arguing. And right now I'm not sure that would help either of us. Adrian's voice softened. I didn't mean to hurt you. I know, she replied. That almost makes it worse. He looked confused. Celine explained quietly. Because if those words came out without thinking, it means the thought already existed somewhere in your mind. Adrian felt the weight of her statement immediately. She walked toward the apartment door. Before opening it, she paused and looked back at him. "I stood beside you during every step of your success," she said. Her voice carried disappointment more than anger. "I believed we respected each other enough to never reduce our relationship to comparison." Adrian remained silent. Celine opened the door slowly. "I need space to understand what this marriage means now." She stepped into the hallway and closed the door behind her. The quiet apartment suddenly felt far larger than before. Adrian stood alone in the living room staring at the closed door. For the first time in years, the man who built a billion-dollar company realized something unsettling. Success could not repair the damage caused by a single careless sentence, and the person whose trust he valued most had just walked away. Celine did not return to the penthouse that night. Instead, she drove across the city to the apartment of someone she trusted deeply, her friend Liana Mercer. Liana had known Celine since university. Their friendship formed during long study sessions and late conversations about career goals, relationships, and the unpredictable paths life often takes. When Liana opened the door and saw Celine standing in the hallway, she immediately sensed something was wrong. "Celine?" she said softly. "What happened?" Celine forced a small smile. "Can I stay here tonight?" Liana stepped aside without hesitation. Of course. Inside the apartment, the atmosphere felt warm and peaceful compared to the tension Celine had just left behind. Liana prepared tea while Celine sat quietly on the couch. For several minutes, neither of them spoke. Finally, Liana placed the cup in front of her and asked gently, "Do you want to talk about it?" Celine stared down at the steam rising from the tea. "He compared me to his ex," she said quietly. Liana's expression tightened. "What?" "He said she was better." The room fell silent. Celine leaned back slowly, exhaustion settling into her voice. "I heard him say it." Liana shook her head in disbelief. "That doesn't sound like Adrian." Celine nodded. "That's what scares me." Her thoughts drifted back to her childhood in the harbor town. Her mother once told her that respect forms the foundation of every strong relationship. Without it, love struggles to survive. Celine had always believed her marriage stood on that foundation. Now she wondered if she had misunderstood something important all along. Back at the penthouse, Adrian remained standing in the living room long after Celine left. The quiet apartment felt unfamiliar without her presence. He walked slowly toward the balcony, where the argument began earlier that evening. The city lights still reflected across the water exactly as they had before. Yet, everything felt different now. Adrian rested his hands on the railing and stared out across the skyline. For the first time in years, his mind wandered back to the earliest days of Caldwell Dynamics. Those memories carried a completely different atmosphere. Small rented offices, long nights spent solving technical problems, meetings with investors who doubted his vision. During those uncertain months, Celine stood beside him with calm support. She listened when negotiations failed. She encouraged him when projects faced unexpected setbacks. She never asked for recognition or influence within the company. She simply believed in his ability to succeed. Adrian slowly realized something unsettling. As the company grew and attention surrounded him, he began absorbing the competitive culture of high-level business environments. Executives compared achievements. Investors compared financial performance. Industry leaders compared reputations and influence. Without noticing it, Adrian adopted that habit himself. He started measuring everything through comparison. Companies, opportunities, even relationships. Standing alone on the balcony, Adrian felt a wave of regret. The woman who supported him during his most difficult years deserved respect, not comparison. Yet his careless sentence suggested something else entirely. And now she was gone. The following morning arrived quietly. Adrian remained awake for most of the night, thinking about the conversation on the balcony and everything that followed afterward. Sunlight slowly filled the penthouse as the city began its daily routine. He walked into the kitchen and poured a cup of coffee, though his attention remained distant. His mind returned again to the early years of his relationship with Celine. Late-night phone calls, walks along the Seattle waterfront, conversations about leadership, responsibility, and the kind of future they hoped to build together. During those moments, Adrian valued her perspective more than anyone else's opinion. Celine grounded him. She reminded him of the values he believed in before wealth and influence entered his life. Somewhere along the path of rapid success, Adrian allowed the environment around him to shape his thinking. Pressure from investors, competition among executives, constant comparison between companies and individuals. That environment slowly distracted him from something essential: gratitude. He had stopped recognizing the quiet strength Celine brought into his life. Adrian placed the coffee cup on the counter and looked out through the large windows. For the first time since the argument, his thoughts became clear. Repairing this situation would not be simple. Trust once damaged requires time and consistent effort to rebuild. But Adrian understood one thing with certainty. He could not allow a careless sentence to destroy the relationship that helped him become the person he was today. He took a slow breath. Then he made a decision. He would fight for his marriage. And this time, success in business would not distract him from what truly mattered. Adrian waited until the afternoon before contacting Celine. He knew a rushed message or careless explanation would only deepen the damage. What happened on the balcony required honesty, patience, and humility. When he finally called, the phone rang several times before she answered. Her voice sounded calm. Yes? Celine, Adrian said quietly. Thank you for picking up. A brief pause followed. What do you want to say? She asked. Adrian spoke carefully. I want to apologize, not with excuses, just the truth. Another short silence passed before she replied. Go ahead. Adrian took a breath. What I said on the balcony was careless, disrespectful, and unfair to you. You did not deserve that comparison. Not after everything you have done for me. Celine listened without interrupting. Adrian continued. I allowed the environment around me to shape my thinking. In business conversations, everyone compares success, influence, and performance. I stopped noticing how that habit carried into my personal life. That explanation might describe the problem, Celine said calmly, but it does not repair the damage. Adrian nodded, even though she could not see him. I understand. Do you? She asked. Yes, because the real issue is not one sentence. It is the idea behind it. Celine remained quiet. Adrian spoke again. I disrespected the person who supported me from the beginning. I know an apology alone cannot change that. For a moment neither of them spoke. Finally Celine responded. You are right about one thing. What? This situation will not be solved by words. Celine sat near the window in Liana's apartment while speaking with Adrian. The Seattle skyline stretched across the distance, yet her thoughts remained focused on the conversation. An apology is a start, she said slowly, but it does not erase what I heard. Adrian accepted the statement without argument. I know, Celine continued. Trust is built over time. Respect is shown through daily choices. When someone breaks that respect, the repair takes more than one conversation. Adrian listened carefully. I'm not asking for immediate forgiveness, he replied. Good, Celine said quietly. She stood and walked toward the kitchen, while thinking through the emotions she still carried. Part of her wanted to believe Adrian's regret was sincere. Another part reminded her how easily those damaging words left his mouth. Do you know what troubled me most? She asked. What? The certainty in your voice when you said it. Adrian felt the weight of that observation. Celine continued. That kind of statement doesn't appear from nowhere. It comes from a mindset that formed over time. Adrian did not deny it. You're right. Celine stopped walking. If this marriage continues, it cannot return to what it was before. Something changed. Adrian understood. What do you need from me? He asked. Celine answered clearly. Honesty, accountability, and actions that show respect again. Her voice remained steady. I will not rebuild trust through promises. I will watch your choices. Adrian accepted the challenge. Because for the first time since their argument, he understood that repairing their relationship required patience, not persuasion. Over the following weeks, Adrian began changing his priorities. Instead of filling every hour with business obligations, he adjusted his schedule to create space for conversations with Celine. The shift surprised many people inside Caldwell Dynamics. Adrian delegated several responsibilities to senior leadership teams who had been prepared for greater authority. He still guided the company's direction, but he no longer treated every meeting as a personal responsibility. That decision allowed him time to focus on something more important: rebuilding communication with Celine. Their conversations restarted gradually. Some took place over coffee in quiet cafes. Others happened during evening walks near the waterfront, where they once spent time discussing their dreams. Adrian listened carefully when Celine spoke. He did not interrupt or defend himself. When she expressed disappointment about how his attitude had changed during recent years, Adrian accepted her perspective without argument. One evening she said something that stayed with him. "You used to measure success by what you built," she told him. "Lately you measure it by how you compare to others." Adrian nodded. "That's true." Celine watched his reaction carefully. Adrian then added, "And I don't want to live that way anymore." Trust did not return immediately. It grew slowly through consistent effort. Viewers listening to this story might wonder something important. If you were in Celine's position, would you forgive Adrian after hearing those words on the balcony? Share your thoughts in the comments and let us know what you would do. Because in relationships, rebuilding respect often requires patience from both sides, and Adrian still had much to prove before Celine could fully believe in their future again. Several weeks after Adrian began adjusting his priorities, Caldwell Dynamics prepared for a major industry conference in Seattle. Leaders from technology firms, investment groups, and infrastructure organizations gathered for the event. The conference focused on innovation, long-term strategy, and the future of digital networks across North America. Adrian had been invited to deliver the closing address. Public speaking never troubled him, yet this presentation carried a different weight. For the first time since the incident on the balcony, he planned to address something more personal than business strategy. Celine attended the conference quietly. She sat among the audience without drawing attention. Few people knew about the tension that had shaken their relationship weeks earlier. When Adrian stepped onto the stage, the audience welcomed him with applause. He began by speaking about the growth of Caldwell Dynamics and the responsibility that comes with leading a company influencing large industries. Then his tone shifted. "Success in business often looks like a personal achievement," Adrian said. "But behind every leader stands someone who helped them reach that position." The audience listened closely. Adrian continued, "For many years I focused heavily on competition and performance. I compared companies, strategies, and results. That mindset slowly shaped the way I viewed other parts of life." He paused briefly. "Recently I realized something important." Adrian looked toward the audience where Celine sat quietly. "The person who supported me from the beginning deserved recognition long before tonight." A few people in the audience exchanged curious glances. Adrian spoke again, this time with sincerity that filled the room. "My wife, Celine Ardent, helped me remain grounded when Caldwell Dynamics was nothing more than an uncertain idea." The acknowledgement surprised many listeners, but the words meant far more to the person sitting quietly in the crowd. The room remained silent as Adrian continued speaking. "Leadership teaches many lessons," he said slowly. "One of the hardest lessons involves recognizing your own mistakes." He stepped slightly closer to the microphone. "Ambition often encourages comparison. Leaders measure themselves against competitors, investors compare numbers, and industries celebrate whoever appears strongest at the moment." Adrian paused again, before finishing the thought. "But comparison can damage something far more valuable than reputation." His voice softened. "Respect." Several audience members nodded thoughtfully. Adrian continued with clear honesty. "Not long ago I said something careless about my wife. The sentence revealed a mindset I allowed to develop over time." He did not hide from the truth. She was never the problem. Adrian took a breath before completing the thought. "I was." The room remained completely still. That admission carried more meaning than any financial statistic or business achievement Adrian had ever shared publicly. He looked toward Celine again. "The person who stands beside you during your hardest years deserves gratitude, not comparison." I forgot that lesson for a moment. Celine watched him quietly. This version of Adrian felt familiar. Not the executive surrounded by competition and pressure. The man she met years earlier at the leadership forum. The man who valued responsibility and integrity. As the audience applauded, Celine understood something important. Change does not happen through promises. It appears through actions. And now the decision rested with her. Whether their marriage would continue forward or remain a chapter from the past. The conference ended with applause echoing through the large hall. But for Celine, the most important moment happened quietly afterward. She waited near the exit while attendees gathered around Adrian to congratulate him on the speech. Many praised his honesty. Others discussed the leadership lessons he shared. Adrian eventually made his way through the crowd. When he reached Celine, neither of them spoke immediately. The moment carried weight because both of them understood what had changed in recent weeks. Adrian broke the silence first. "I meant every word I said up there." Celine studied his expression carefully. "I know," she replied. Adrian nodded slowly. "But I also know a speech does not repair everything." "That's true," Celine said. She looked around the hall for a moment before continuing. "Trust returns slowly." Adrian accepted that answer without hesitation. "I'm willing to take the time." Celine appreciated the honesty in his response. During the early weeks after their argument, Adrian tried to show improvement through his actions. Now she could see those changes more clearly. They left the building together and stepped outside into the cool evening air. The city moved normally around them. Cars passed along the streets while people walked between restaurants and offices. For a moment, they stood quietly beside each other. Celine finally spoke. "I'm not ready to forget what happened," she said. "I don't expect you to," Adrian replied. She nodded. "But I'm willing to see where things go from here." The path ahead would require patience from both of them. Yet for the first time since the night of the balcony argument, hope returned to their conversation. Life gradually returned to a steadier rhythm. Adrian continued guiding Caldwell Dynamics, but his approach toward leadership changed in noticeable ways. Instead of allowing competition to shape every decision, he began focusing on long-term impact and responsible growth. He encouraged collaboration inside the company and placed greater trust in the leadership team he had built over the years. Employees noticed the difference. Adrian listened more carefully during meetings. He asked questions about how projects affected the people involved, rather than focusing only on financial outcomes. Those changes reflected lessons he had recently relearned. Meanwhile, Celine maintained her own path. Her consulting firm continued growing as small and mid-sized businesses sought guidance in organizing operations and financial planning. Clients respected her practical thinking and steady leadership. Celine never depended on Adrian's success to define her own achievements. That independence strengthened the balance within their relationship. Some evenings they met for quiet dinners again, much like the early days when they walked along the Seattle waterfront discussing dreams and ambitions. The conversations felt different now. Both of them spoke with greater awareness. Adrian shared ideas without measuring them against competitors. Celine offered thoughtful perspectives while continuing to pursue her own professional goals. Their relationship no longer revolved around ambition alone. It rested on something stronger: mutual respect. The lesson Adrian learned during those difficult weeks remained clear in his mind. Success may open doors, but character determines what happens once those doors are open. Years later, the story of Adrian and Celine remained an important reminder of how easily success can distract people from what matters most. Ambition drives progress. Innovation builds companies. Determination creates opportunities. Yet none of those achievements hold lasting value without respect for the people who stand beside us. Adrian once allowed comparison to influence his thinking. The culture surrounding wealth and influence encouraged constant measurement between leaders, companies, and accomplishments. For a brief moment, that mindset entered his personal life. The result nearly cost him the relationship that supported him from the beginning. Celine's response changed the outcome. She refused to accept quick apologies or empty promises. Instead, she demanded honesty, accountability, and consistent action. That decision forced Adrian to confront his mistake and grow beyond it. Their marriage survived not because the problem disappeared overnight, but because both of them chose patience while rebuilding trust. Stories like this invite reflection. If you were in Celine's place, what would you have done after hearing those words on the balcony? Would you walk away permanently or give the relationship another chance? Share your thoughts in the comments. Your perspective might help someone facing a similar situation. And if you enjoy meaningful stories about relationships, respect, and life lessons, support the channel by liking the video, sharing it with others, and subscribing to Twisted Love Tales with Mr. Easton. Because every story we share carries a simple truth. Love survives mistakes. Respect decides whether it stays.
Trust takes time.
I'll spend the rest of my life earning it.